Story 1. A Night at the Roxbury Cinema. Submitted by Haunted Hannah. I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me a few years back. Something I really don't talk about because it shakes me up every time I think about it. It's not nothing supernatural, but it was terrifying all the same. It happened at the Roxbury Cinema, this old movie theater in my town. The theater was having one of those midnight retro screenings. You know, the ones where they play old films that only the true film buffs care about. That night, they were showing Rosemary's Baby. I was a big film nerd back then, so I was super excited to see it on the big screen. I remember it was cold, rainy night. There were only a handful of people in the theater. As I settled into my seat, I noticed a guy sitting a few rows behind me, all by himself, just staring at the screen with his weird look in his eyes. I ignored him and got lost in the movie. About halfway through, I needed to use the restroom, so I got up and started down the aisle. As I did, I glanced back and saw the guy was still in his seat, but had turned around and was now staring directly at me. I tried to shrug it off, thinking maybe he was just looking at something behind me. As I walked into the restroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. After I finished, I looked in the mirror and told myself I was just being paranoid. But as I left the restroom and started back towards the theater, I heard a door creaking open behind me and footsteps following me down the hall. My heart started pounding in my chest. I quickened my pace, my eyes darting back, but I couldn't see anyone, yet I could still hear the footsteps. I felt my palms start to sweat. Maybe it was just another moviegoer or an employee. Maybe I was just letting my imagination get the best of me. But I couldn't shake that feeling of dread as I reached the door to the theater. I glanced back one more time and saw the reflection of the man from earlier in the glass, watching me, his face expressionless. I hurried back to my seat and tried to focus on the movie, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The rest of the film was a blur. I just remember the feeling of those eyes on the back of my head. When the lights came up, I looked around, but the guy was gone. I searched the theater, thinking maybe he had just moved, but I couldn't find him anywhere. I was the last to leave, and I could feel my heart pounding as I walked to my car. I never went back to the Roxbury Cinema, not after that night. I still don't know who that man was or what he wanted, but I'll never forget the way he looked at me, like he was studying me. Even now, years later, I can't shake that feeling. I lock all of my doors and windows every night, and I avoid going to the movies alone because deep down, I can't shake the fear that he's still out there, watching me, waiting for something, and I'll never know what that something is. Story 2. The Unseen Audience. Submitted by Jared Jake 13. Alright, this story might sound kinda crazy, but I swear it happened, and it still gives me chills. My name is Jake, and I was 17 at the time. It was the middle of the summer, and I had just gotten my job at this old decrepit cinema in town. The place had a sort of eerie vibe, but I needed the money, so I shrugged it off. I remember one night after closing, the manager, an older guy with strange eyes, handed me a key. He said, "Jake, I'm gonna need you to close the theater by 3 tonight. Just make sure not to go in there alone. It's got a weird feel to it." He had this serious look on his face, but I just laughed it off. I mean, what could be scary about an empty movie theater? I was running late that night. My friend bailed on me, and I was left alone to close up the theater at 3. As I approached the theater's entrance, a chill ran down my spine. I didn't believe in ghosts or anything, but the place did look intimidating in the dim light. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside. I could hear the distant echo of my footsteps as I made my way down the aisle, sweeping popcorn and trash. I remember the smell of stale air and musty seats. It was then that I heard it, a faint whispering from the back row. I froze, straining my ears, thinking I must have imagined it. But then it came again, a soft murmur-like conversation from the far corner of the room. I called out, "Hello? Someone there?" My voice trembled a bit, but I chalked it up to the creepy ambiance. No reply. I continued cleaning, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then, I glanced at the projection booth window. I swear I saw a flicker of movement, a shadow passing by. My heart pounded in my chest. The rational part of me insisted it was just a reflection or a trick of the light, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The whispers grew louder, more pronounced, like a crowd of unseen people watching a movie I couldn't see. I could almost hear laughter, gasps, and comments, all mingled together in a soft canopy. I decided to check the projection room, thinking maybe something was left on or malfunctioning. As I reached the door, my hand trembling on the handle, the sound of the unseen audience grew louder, almost as if they were urging me not to go inside. But I had to know. I opened the door. The room was empty, the projector silent, but the whispers persisted. Now a deafening roar in my ears. The room felt cold, and I could feel the presence, like eyes watching me from the shadows. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my feet, and ran out of the theater, the unseen audience's whispers following me down the hall. I quit the next day. I don't know what was in that theater, but it was real. Sometimes when I pass by that old cinema, I swear I can still hear the whispers, the unseen audience forever watching a movie only they can see. It's not a place I'll ever go back to. It's a memory that still haunts me, reminding me that some doors are better left unopened. Take it as you will, but that is my story and I am sticking to it. The unseen audience is still there in Theater 3, waiting for the next show to begin. Story 3: The Late Night Screening. Submitted by Observed Aubrey. So it's weird even to write this down, but since you asked about realistic encounters, I guess I can share something that happened to me. It was a little more than strange and downright terrifying, to be honest. I love movies, always have, but this one time I decided to go to a late night screening alone. It was one of those small independent cinemas in the city's heart, kind of run down and the only place showing this classic film I'd be dying to see. The evening was as normal as it could be. I got myself some popcorn, a soda, and settled into one of those creaky seats. The theater was practically empty, maybe 2 or 3 other people scattered around. The lights dimmed, and the movie started. But then, like an hour in, I noticed something odd. One of the guys sitting a few rows ahead of me kept glancing back. At first, I thought he was just checking his surroundings, but his glances turned into stares, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was overreacting, but then, during a quiet scene, I heard footsteps. Slow, soft, deliberate. They were coming from the back of the theater, and they were getting closer. I turned around, and I swear my heart must have stopped. The guy who had been staring was now standing at the end of my row, just watching me. He had this odd smile, the corners of his mouth pulled up way too far. His eyes were wide open, unblinking. Panic set in. What is he doing? Why was he staring at me like that? I looked around, but other people in the theater seemed oblivious to him. He began to walk toward me, still with that unending smile. I didn't want to see what he wanted. I grabbed my things and bolted towards the exit. As I hit the door, I glanced back and saw him still in the same spot, watching me, his face twisted into that strange, unsettling smile. Didn't stop running until I was back in my car, and even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching me. I reported it to the cinema staff the next day, but they couldn't find anything unusual on their security footage. They said maybe it was a staff member checking on things, but that didn't explain why he looked at me or why he followed me. I don't go to late night screenings anymore. Heck, I don't go to that cinema at all. There's something haunting about that experience, something too real and terrifying that a screen can't capture. I wish I knew what that guy wanted, why he looked at me like that. Maybe some things are better left unknown. So if you're going out to a movie, especially alone, just be cautious. You never know who might be watching.